The first thing you need to know is this: in less than 30 seconds, 4 recruits would end up sprawled across the Ravenwood armory floor, bleeding, bruised, and gasping the same question. "What the hell are you?" Her answer would ripple through the entire base like wildfire. But before that night, before Echo Squad made their mistake, you need to understand who she was, and why silence made her the most dangerous woman in the room. You're watching Stories Unseen. Where are you tuning in from? Drop your city below and hit subscribe for more untold missions. The Ravenwood training complex was a fortress of steel and concrete, where even firing pins were logged like gold. The armory always smelled of gun oil and dust cooked under fluorescent lights. Steel racks stretched in endless rows, cradling Talos M24 carbines, prototype suppressors, encrypted comms kits, gear most civilians would never glimpse. And for 3 weeks straight, one woman moved among those racks like a ghost. Her badge read, Kara Holt, civilian contractor, logistics, nothing more, no rank, no insignia, just a faded set of fatigues and an encrypted manifest tablet she carried like an extra limb. She arrived every morning at 06:30 sharp, left by evening chow, and in between rarely spoke more than 10 words, to most. She was background noise, a scar at her collarbone, boots worn thin from unseen miles, eyes that lingered too long on exits. Senior NCOs gave her quiet nods, sensing something practiced in the way she handled weapons. But the fresh blood, the rotation from Bragg and Jackson, weren't so wise. They whispered. They speculated. Admin washout who needed a paycheck. Looks like she taught ROTC. Their words bounced off her like rubber bullets. Kara didn't flinch, didn't even glance up. She worked with an unshakable steadiness that unsettled them more than any insult. That silence gnawed at Echo Squad, the nickname 4 restless recruits had given themselves. Trent Calloway, son of a colonel, 22, failed ranger selection, still walked like command belonged to him. Kyle Mercer, his shadow, wiry and loud, laughing too hard at every jab. Grant Bishop, the muscle, broad as a wall, booted from combat engineer training for disciplinary reasons. Ethan Vey, the reckless one, sharp-eyed, tossed from intel school for mouthing off to a captain. They weren't the worst Ravenwood had seen, but they were angry, insecure, and desperate for a win. To them, Kara Holt, the quiet contractor with the scar and the clipped answers, became the perfect puzzle. They tested her, shoulder checks in the hallway, loud remarks. Vey once dumped solvent across her workstation, waiting for her to snap. She didn't. She cleaned the spill, logged the incident, and kept moving. What they didn't see, but Master Sergeant Rylan Graves did, was how Kara's posture shifted when surrounded, or how she set her pen down like a trigger, not a tool. Graves had 3 decades in uniform. He knew when someone wasn't just a contractor, and he wasn't wrong. Kara Holt wasn't at Ravenwood to count rifles. She was a SEAL sniper, 42 confirmed extractions, 11 classified eliminations pulled from the field after a drone ambush in Iron Vale Range left her with nerve damage the Navy called career limiting. They offered her retirement, a desk in D.C., a training billet at Little Creek. She chose none. Instead, she walked the razor edge between operator and civilian, serving quiet while the brass debated whether she was permanently broken or just scarred. Every day, she carried that truth like shrapnel near the spine, hidden, dangerous, untouchable. And that silence, her silence, was about to be tested. One evening, long after the lights dimmed, Kara stayed to finish cataloging suppressors. Echo Squad decided that was the night they'd finally get answers. They should have listened to the warnings. They should have walked away. Instead, they stepped into the armory, and Ravenwood would never see her the same way again. Kara Holt worked with the kind of precision that made words unnecessary. A half-dismantled Talos M24 lay across her bench, each part aligned with clinical neatness. Her hands moved with steady speed. the rhythm of someone who'd done this 1,000 times under harsher lights than Ravenwood's fluorescent hum. That's when Trent Calloway strolled over, boots cracking the concrete, Kyle Mercer trailing with that crooked grin. Their attempt at casual swagger didn't mask the challenge in their eyes. "Damn," Calloway said. "Loud enough for the mechanics nearby. She handles that like she's about to deploy." Mercer smirked. "Maybe she's practicing, pretending she's a real soldier." They laughed. Kara didn't look up. Her hands kept working, sliding the bolt carrier free with calm efficiency. That being ignored was the first insult Calloway couldn't stomach. Back home, people leaned in when he spoke. Here, the quiet contractor acted like he wasn't even in the room. "I'm talking to you," he pressed, stepping closer. Kara glanced up, eyes flat and unimpressed. "I heard you. I'm working." Mercer chuckled. "Real serious work, counting guns." She set the bolt carrier down, finally meeting Calloway's stare. "Is there something you need just being friendly? Most people around here appreciate that." "I'm sure they do." She returned to the rifle, dismissal sharp as a knife. Calloway's jaw tightened. "Wouldn't kill you to be social once in a while." Kara ignored him, reassembling the M24 with crisp movements. Mercer and Calloway exchanged a look. This wasn't over. Over the next days, Echo Squad escalated, shoulder bumps in corridors, whispered barbs meant to carry. Each time, Kara absorbed it with the same stillness and indifference sharper than retaliation, and that indifference only stoked their pride. 3 days later, it boiled over. Kara was in the vehicle bay cataloging prototype night optics. The space was nearly empty, just her, the smell of oil, and 2 mechanics bent under the hood of a Humvee. Then Echo Squad arrived, boots ringing off the concrete like a warning. "Well, well," Calloway said. "Look who's branching out." Kara glanced up, then back to her manifest. "Bays closed for inventory." "Good thing we're not here for maintenance." Mercer shot back, planting himself at the door. The mechanics froze. One, a staff sergeant, started toward them, grease streaking his sleeves. Calloway waved him off. "We're good here, Sergeant, just talking to the contractor." The sergeant hesitated. Uneasy. Kara gave him a tiny nod. She could handle it. He backed away, though his hand hovered near his radio. Vay drifted behind her. Too close. "We've been wondering about you." "Nothing to wonder about." Bishop leaned on a tool cart, arms folded. "That's where you're wrong. Everyone's got a story. Everyone talks except you." Kara wrote another line, though her eyes tracked all four threats. Limited exits, workable, but far from ideal. "Maybe she's hiding something," Mercer said. "Or maybe she's just antisocial," Calloway added, stepping close enough to force her to look up. "Maybe you should find somewhere else to be," Kara said. Calloway smirked. "Not friendly. This is a public area. We've got every right to be here." She studied him, then returned to her log, but her grip on the pen had shifted thumb higher. "Ready position. I think she's not what she pretends to be." Vay pushed, circling. Kara set the pen down and faced them fully. "What do you think I'm pretending to be, a hotshot contractor with clearance?" "But really," Calloway sneered. "Just another civilian who couldn't hack the real military. Bye now." The mechanics had stopped working. The staff sergeant's hand hovered at his radio. The tension was thick enough to snap. Kara's expression stayed calm, unreadable. But when she spoke, her words cut. "You need to leave. Now." Calloway laughed, or what Kara didn't answer. She gathered her gear, slid the log into her tablet case, and walked toward the exit. They parted just enough to let her through. As she passed, Calloway leaned in. "This isn't over." Kara stopped, turned. Her eyes locked on his, voice soft but final. "Yeah, it is." She walked out, leaving Echo Squad stewing in silence. The sergeant keyed his radio, filing a quiet report. Because men like that, they never stopped pushing, and the next time they'd go too far. Master Sergeant Ryland Graves had seen enough in 30 years to spot trouble before it broke cover. He'd called ambushes seconds early, cut through false bravado, and recognized predators hiding behind clean boots. At Ravenwood, he saw the same signs forming around the quiet contractor no one understood. It wasn't the snide remarks that bothered him. It was how Kara Holt moved, her eyes swept with purpose, never drifting, every room. She angled herself to watch both exits. When recruits crowded her, her body didn't stiffen, it settled, balanced, ready, like someone who expected contact from the least obvious angle. One afternoon, he found Calloway and Mercer lingering by the armory door. They weren't waiting on maintenance. They were talking loud enough for the whole bay. "Some people need to learn how things work around here," Mercer said, folding his arms like he owned the place. "You can't just ignore everyone and expect to fit in." "Respect matters," Calloway added, every word heavy with entitlement. Graves walked up slow, the kind of pace that made junior soldiers snap straight. Calloway stiffened, Mercer trying to mirror it. "You boys got something on your minds," Graves asked. "Just discussing integration." "Sergeant," Calloway replied smoothly. "How everyone should be part of the team. Integration." Graves echoed. "That what you call harassment now?" Mercer's grin slipped. "We're not harassing anyone, just being friendly." And the contractor Graves pressed. "She appreciate this friendliness." Calloway shrugged. "Hard to say. She doesn't talk much. Maybe she's got reasons," Graves said, like what Mercer snapped. Sarcasm sharp. Graves let the silence work before answering. He didn't have clearance for the classified files, but he'd seen enough. Holt's requisition signed left-handed, though she was listed as right dominant. The way she weighed ammunition by hand, never off by more than a round. How she once corrected a Marine's field strip without glancing up. And then there was the morning run. 5-minute miles, not just speed the breathing rhythm. The subtle route changes, the pauses to scan terrain. Recon habits, not exercise. Graves had watched operators before. Holt might wear a contractor badge, but she moved like someone forged in places no one wrote about. He leaned in, voice quiet. "Ever hear? Still waters run deep." Mercer frowned. "Means some people stay quiet 'cause they got nothing to say." Or, Graves said evenly, "They've got too much and they're smart enough to keep it inside." That landed. Calloway's jaw tightened, pride straining against caution. "You saying we're being stupid, I'm saying you're young and trying to find your footing. But you're circling someone you don't understand, and that's dangerous." Mercer asked. Dangerous how Graves glanced at the motor pool mechanics finishing up. Wrenches clanging. "The dangerous ones don't advertise it. They don't flex, don't brag. They just are. Push them far enough, and you'll find out what dangerous means." Calloway forced a smirk. "So she's dangerous." Graves didn't blink. "Some folks stay quiet because they've walked through loud places. Smart men respect that." "Understood. Sergeant," Calloway said stiffly. But Graves heard the hollow ring words without weight. He'd seen that look before in soldiers who only learned by burning themselves. As he walked away, a knot settled in his gut. Echo Squad wasn't done, and next time, Holt might not leave them standing. At 1930 hours, Kara Holt knew she wasn't alone in the Ravenwood armory. She was cross-checking serials in the back row's prototype suppressors. Encrypted optics stacked like treasure. The main lights were already in night cycle, leaving only the pale floods that threw long shadows across the steel. The door opened soundlessly, too careful for someone with clearance. 4 sets of boots followed steps aiming for casual, carrying intent. Kara didn't look up, but her grip shifted. Stylus angled like a weapon. Old training firing back to life. 4 bodies, box formation, exit covered, 2 flanking, 1 pushing forward. Textbook containment, even if Echo Squad didn't know the term. The armory was a trap and a weapon all at once. Hard surfaces for ricochet. Narrow aisles for close quarters strikes. but no second exit. Concrete floors that broadcast every sound, and any serious noise would light up security logs. She measured them without moving her head. Calloway postured 6 feet ahead, pretending authority. Vey twitched left, eager and unstable. Mercer leaned at the door. Smug, half a step from bolting. Bishop loomed right, bulk ready to crush. If it broke bad, Vey would spring first. Calloway would chase pride. Bishop would try brute force. Mercer would pick a side late. Kara had drilled this exact scenario 100 times. Rule 1, don't let them think as a pack. Rule 2, speed and shock win. But first, the last chance. Working late again, Calloway's voice carried. She tracked their spread, Mercer bracing the exit. Vey circling, standard containment, amateur execution, evening, she said. You always this dedicated, Vey pressed. Grin tight. Or just avoiding people. Kara logged one more line, then turned slowly. Calloway stood just far enough to deny threat, close enough to loom. Is there something you need conversation? Calloway smirked. Everyone gets along here except you. You've got the wrong person. Mercer barked a laugh. See attitude, like she's better than us. I'm not better than anyone, Kara replied. Tone flat. I just work better alone. Well, tonight, Vey said, stepping closer. You don't get to... The air tightened. Kara scanned racks, exits, improvised weapons. Her voice dropped like a hammer. Walk away. Calloway chuckled. Or what? For a flicker. Hesitation rippled through them. Something in her stillness screamed danger. Pride smothered it. Calloway reached for her tablet. Kara set it down gently. You sure about this? Vey grabbed her arm. The shock hit him first. Her arm wasn't soft, it was coiled steel. Kara's eyes cut to his grip. Bad choice. Her hand locked his wrist, a pivot, a twist, and he flew sideways into the racks, steel ringing like thunder. Mercer lunged. Kara's elbow drove into his solar plexus, folding him with a wheeze. Bishop charged, bulk thundering. She dropped low, swept his legs, and slammed him into the floor. Concrete answered with a crack. Calloway rushed desperate. Arms wide, she slipped inside, drove her shoulder into his ribs, and lifted, slamming him hard enough to rattle steel. It ended in 28 seconds. 4 recruits down. Mercer gasping, Vey clutching a bent wrist. Bishop unconscious, Calloway bleeding, dazed. Kara stood centered, breath even. She picked up her tablet, then crouched eye level with Calloway. Petty Officer First Class Kara Holt, United States Navy. SEAL Team 2, 2 tours in the Red Mesa conflict. Calador Rainforest extraction. Her voice sharpened. 42 confirmed extractions, 11 classified eliminations. She rose, straightened her shirt. I'm not a contractor. I'm on medical leave while the brass decide if I'm broken or just scarred. They put me here because I can still serve without being a liability. Her eyes swept across them. I stayed quiet. I gave you every chance. But you thought silence meant weak. Vey whispered, trembling. We didn't know. No, Kara said coldly. You didn't, because you never asked. She pulled a first aid kit, tossed it between them. Patch up, write your reports. But understand avoiding trouble was my choice. Ending it was yours. She gathered her files, checked her watch, and moved to the door before leaving. She looked back once more. Anyone else want to test whether I'm antisocial? No one spoke. Kara nodded once and slipped into the night-lit corridors, leaving 4 recruits broken and a legend just born. By sunrise. The story had already swept through Ravenwood. 4 recruits cornered a quiet contractor in the armory and learned, in less than 30 seconds, she wasn't who they thought she was. She wasn't fragile. She wasn't harmless. She was ex-Navy SEAL, and she dropped them without breaking stride. The official investigation kicked off at 800 sharp. Colonel Adrian Locke, the base commander, had weathered enough incidents to know these things never happen in a vacuum. Someone always sees the storm forming. Someone always thinks they can manage it quietly. Someone always underestimates the bill that comes due. The first man he called in was Master Sergeant Rylan Graves. You knew this was building. Locke said, not a question. Graves stood at rigid attention. Yes, sir. I warned them, filed the observations. Echo Squad was circling her like sharks. And the contractor limited interaction. Sir, Graves admitted, but I suspected prior service. Locke slid a tablet across his desk, scrolling through the redacted file that trainees were never meant to see. The blacked-out line still left a clear silhouette. Nothing like civilian contractor. Logistics. Kara Holt, Petty Officer First Class, Naval Special Warfare Command, SEAL Team 2. 42 confirmed extractions, 11 classified eliminations. 2 combat deployments. Obsidian Spire citation for leading the Caladur rainforest operation that rescued 11 hostages. Medivac from the Ironvale Range after a concussive strike nearly destroyed her spine. 18 months of rehab, officially on medical leave pending disability review. Locke exhaled through his nose. She's not just ex-military. Sergeant. She's one of the finest operators the Navy's produced in a decade. Graves didn't answer, but his eyes narrowed a fraction. The colonel set the tablet aside and opened a stack of disciplinary packets. Trent Calloway medical discharge, broken nose. But the psych eval was worse, unstable under stress. Too aggressive. Unfit for leadership. Kyle Mercer and Ethan Vey, suspended pending review. Mercer likely headed for administrative separation. Vey might claw back a slot if he learned humility. Grant Bishop 6 weeks medical leave for a concussion. Then reassignment to non-combat logistics. His frontline path was over. Locke leaned back. In your opinion, how bad could this have gone? Graves measured his reply. Sir, if Petty Officer Holt had believed they meant serious harm, we'd be writing 4 eulogies, not medical notes. She held back. Considerably, everything indicated restraint, minimum necessary force. She could have killed them. Yes. Sir, any or all. Locke turned to the window, watching silhouettes move across the training grounds. SecNav's office already called. They want to know how 4 of our recruits ended up in the hospital after attacking a decorated SEAL. This isn't just discipline. Graves. It's culture. When young men think they can corner a woman and break her down without consequence. Somewhere along the line we failed. Agreed. Sir, I'll formalize it with command. But effective immediately at Ravenwood, any contractor with prior service will have their records visible to unit commanders, nothing classified, but enough to ensure respect. And mandatory briefings for every rotation. Respect civilians, respect contractors, respect basic human dignity. No exceptions. Yes, sir. Graves turned to go. One more thing, Locke said. Find out where Holt requested transfer. I'm writing a personal recommendation. We need more like her in uniform, not fewer. The reports were sealed. The recruits were quietly shuffled to other units. None of them ever spoke about that night. The legend didn't need their words. When the next wave of wide-eyed soldiers arrived, Graves added a line to orientation. Not everyone who stays quiet has nothing to say. Some stay quiet because they've already proven everything they need to. He let that hang, then finished. The most dangerous person in the room is usually the one who doesn't brag about it. Remember that. By then. Kara Holt was gone, transferred. Waiting on a verdict only doctors and brass could render broken for good, or just scarred enough to keep going. But Ravenwood still whispered her name. The tale of the quiet contractor who dropped 4 recruits in 28 seconds became a warning passed down from platoon to platoon, and a reminder that carried farther than any shouted threat. Silence isn't weakness. Sometimes, silence is the sharpest weapon of all.